the engineer origin from Hellraiser, who is the Labyrinth's monster. So, you've seen the Cenobites. You've met Pinhead. You've probably solved, or tried to avoid, the Lament Configuration. But there's one creature lurking in the shadows of the Hellraiser mythos that most fans barely understand. It doesn't speak. It doesn't play by the rules of the Cenobites. It crawls, slithers, and stalks through the darkest corners of Hell's labyrinth. This is the Engineer, one of the most mysterious and ancient beings in the Hellraiser universe. It isn't just a monster. It might be one of Hell's original architects. Let's dive deep into the Engineer's terrifying origins, its role across the Hellraiser timeline, and how this creature might be older and more important than even the iconic Pinhead. What is the Engineer? The Engineer is not a cenobite. That's important. Unlike Pinhead, Butterball, or Chatter, the Engineer doesn't wear human leather stitched into holy vestments or speak in poetic threats. Instead, the Engineer is something more primal, something that lurks on the edge of evolution and blasphemy. It looks nothing like the humanoid Cenobites. The Engineer's body is a grotesque blend of human skin and scale. It hangs from the labyrinth's walls like an insect, scuttling upside down on hand-like feet. Its amber, cat-like eyes burn in the dark. Its mouth is lined with multiple rows of shark-like teeth, and it has a long, scorpion-like tail. It isn't designed for conversation. It's designed to chase, hunt, and drag things into the dark. And the worst part? It doesn't just lurk. It watches. It waits. It acts. Pre-Cenobite history. Was the Engineer once human? According to the oldest lore in the Hellraiser mythos, the Engineer might predate the Cenobites entirely. It's rumored that millions of years ago, long before the era of Leviathan's order, a human stumbled upon a portal to the dimension of Hell. That person was transformed through pure exposure to the raw, lawless forces of the Labyrinth. Not elevated like a Cenobite, but mutated into a function, a living mechanism. That being became the Engineer. If that's true, the Engineer may be the first creature to have accidentally opened Hell's gates, long before the Lament Configuration even existed. It could be the original cautionary tale, the punishment before the rules were written. It is a living reminder of what happens when Hell consumes you without guidance, ritual, or hierarchy. The Engineer and the Cenobites. The Engineer is not technically one of the Cenobites, but it does work alongside them, sometimes. It is considered a servant of Hell, or more specifically, a servant of Leviathan, the godlike entity that rules the Labyrinth. But unlike Pinhead's Gash, which functions like a team or cult, the Engineer appears more solitary. It doesn't seem to take pleasure in suffering. It doesn't monologue. It performs a function. It acts as an enforcer, a guard, and perhaps even a creator. That's right. In The Hellbound Heart, Clive Barker's original novella that inspired the Hellraiser films, the Engineer is described as the one who made the Cenobites' torture devices. It forges the tools of pain. It builds the architecture of torment. That makes the Engineer something like Hell's blacksmith, part artisan, part monster. Kirsty's encounter in Hellraiser, 1987. The first on-screen appearance of the Engineer comes in the original 1987 Hellraiser film, and it's absolutely unforgettable. When Kirsty solves the Lament Configuration, she finds herself transported to the Labyrinth. While chasing the sound of a baby crying, she stumbles deeper into the dimension, until the Engineer reveals itself. It doesn't speak. It doesn't warn. It simply lunges at her. Kirsty runs, barely escaping through sheer luck. She solves the puzzle box again, closing the portal, but she never forgets the moment she came face to face with that unnatural predator. Later in the movie, just when you think all is said and done, the Engineer returns one last time, emerging from a closet, clawing its way into reality, and trying to claim the Lament Configuration. But once again, Kirsty defeats it, solving the box and banishing it in a burst of flame. This makes the Engineer one of the very few Hellraiser entities to act independently of the Cenobites. It doesn't wait to be summoned. It doesn't follow orders. It acts according to its own, perhaps ancient, programming. The Engineer in The Hellbound Heart. Clive Barker's original novella gives us an even stranger version of the Engineer. In The Hellbound Heart, it's described not as a crawling insectoid beast, but as something that resembles a cone of white fire, shining like a minor sun. It's not just grotesque. It's celestial, alien. This version of the engineer doesn't just chase Kirsty. It gives her the Lament Configuration, almost like a test or a curse. It appears under Julia's wedding veil, almost mocking her humanity. It's a trickster, a manipulator, and perhaps even a prophet of Leviathan's will. The creature doesn't explain itself. It doesn't need to. Its presence alone is a message. You are in a place where flesh and rules no longer matter. The Heart of Damnation and the Cenobite Massacre, 1991. One of the most brutal events in Hellraiser lore occurs in 1991, when a woman named Glenda solves a new puzzle, the Heart of Damnation. This box summons a brutal new Gash, Saucy Jack, Bright Eyes, The Voice, and Butterball, but alongside them appears the Engineer, ready to carry out Hell's justice. When Glenda's colleague Hank stabs the Heart of Damnation in a desperate attempt to undo the summoning, the Cenobites go berserk. Saucy Jack leads a full-scale slaughter. And the Engineer? It joins in, ruthlessly tearing through Glenda and Hank before slipping back into the Labyrinth. Here, the Engineer isn't just lurking. It's on the front lines of Hell's fury, acting with purpose, rage, and coordination. It proves that when Leviathan's order is disrespected, even its oldest and most primal monsters will lash out. The Engineer and the Call to Arms, 1992. In 1992, Hell faces a new threat, the Harrowers. These are humans who dare to enter the Labyrinth and fight back. And as they enter the puzzle chamber, the Engineer is one of many demonic residents who witness the General's call to arms. This is a turning point in Hell's history. The Harrowers summon the Lucky Six powerful warriors chosen to kill Cenobites, Merkova, Cattleskull, Fulgur, Halo Lades, Cowboy, and Turpus. The Engineer doesn't fight directly in this moment, but it watches, observes, calculates. There's a sense that it's recording events, not for amusement, but for function, as if it's keeping tabs on the battle not out of loyalty, but because it knows what's coming next. It might even be preparing to rebuild the Labyrinth once the dust settles. The Engineer's purpose in the Labyrinth. So, what is the Engineer really? Is it a guardian? A forger? A predator? A mistake? The truth might be all of the above. The Engineer appears to be a fundamental part of the Labyrinth itself. Not a commander, not a soldier, but a structure. A system, like the gears inside a clock or the blood inside a machine. It doesn't need to be loyal to the Cenobites because it predates them. It doesn't serve Pinhead, it serves Leviathan directly, or perhaps serves the Labyrinth as a concept. It might even be the Labyrinth in a way, a living extension of its will. If the Cenobites are priests of pain and Leviathan is their god, then the Engineer is their unholy craftsman. It builds what they need, it clears what gets in their way, and when called upon, it becomes the monster that Hell uses to teach lessons no Cenobite could. Other Engineers? In later lore, there are hints that the Engineer may not be the only one of its kind. Some variations and offshoots show creatures with similar abilities, beings with bladed tentacles and nightmarish forms that move like insects or serpents. But none have the same recognition, history, or power. Whether the Engineer is a unique entity or the last of a dying breed is still unknown. But there's no question, it is the most iconic of its kind. Final thoughts. The Engineer is one of the most fascinating and underexplored entities in the Hellraiser universe. It isn't bound by Hell's rituals or limited to human-like torment. It is older, stranger, more primal. It's the crawling intelligence beneath the Labyrinth, the builder of suffering, the hand that shapes Hell's tools. And maybe, just maybe, it's the first warning any soul should heed when they start playing with a puzzle box. So the next time you hear a scraping sound in the dark, don't look for Pinhead. Look for something crawling upside down. Look for amber eyes. Look for the Engineer.